Who has more influence, an A-list celebrity or a YouTuber like Mr. Beast? Well, the answer, it might surprise you. Today, we're talking about how YouTube stars have kind of breaking into mainstream and kind of breaking the frame on what it means to be a celebrity. And so it's kind of crazy that how anybody with a good camera, a good computer, and some good internet speed can upload a great video to YouTube and can turn themselves into a celebrity over time. But with all that said, is that a good thing? Is it a good thing that anybody can be the next celebrity in this world? I don't know. Well, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, so there is some truth, Grant, to the fact that anybody can start a YouTube channel. They can even use their iPhone and they can make great videos that, keep viewers watching and give the algorithm what it wants and create an audience and be the next big thing and be famous, man. That's new. Right? Back in the day, it was you were either a celebrity on a TV show or, like I said, an actor or a musician, right? There was these other mainstream ways. So today it's different. I think everybody can recognize that with the opportunity that YouTube provides. So the question is how is the new YouTube fame different from the old school traditional celebrity fame? How's it different?
Mm-hmm. So to me, the biggest difference is twofold. One is as an influencer, we'll use that word, you have a lot more control over the audience that you cultivate. So for instance, if you are making makeup or beauty videos, the people who know who you are going to be people who are interested in that topic. Whereas before, if you're a movie star or you're some kind of celebrity in like the 90s or early 2000s or something, you don't necessarily know who's watching your work. Like it could be anybody. Like most people watch a lot of different kinds of movies, whereas most people don't watch most of YouTube. You know what I mean? Like everybody kind of finds their niche. So simply by making things that you're interested in, you will attract an audience of people who are interested in what you like. So that's a big difference right there. Is I think you probably end up having more in common with your audience in this, quote unquote, new age of social media versus the old ways. Now, number two is you actually now have a relationship with your audience. It's a parasocial relationship, and even that word parasocial is kind of new. But you now are able to directly talk to your audience, whether that's with a community post on YouTube, whether it's with a video, whether it's with a tweet. It's you now have complete control over the message that you send out to your audience. Whereas before, you'd have to go on like a talk show, or people would only know you in like a movie and you were an actor. It's the way that people knew you was filtered through the media. Whereas now it's only filtered through social media, which you have way more control over. So all of this is to say, you just have a lot more control. You have a lot more, you have more of a relationship with your audience. Whereas before it was all kind of like paparazzi photos and interviews, and a lot of the interviews were corny. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like you only get to talk about what the interviewer would ask you. Excuse me, I think I had too much tea earlier. I'm a little bit caffeinated, but yeah, you just have a lot more control over your audience and your message in general, which I think is a lot healthier.
You think having control and having a relationship with your audience is healthier?
Yes, because before, and you would see a lot of like celebrities complaining about this, like if the only way that you can get your message out there besides being in a movie or something is to go on some like Hollywood Insider interview, like the questions they ask you are kind of like you have to respond to those questions. Like you can't just say what you want to say. You have to kind of rely on the media to ask you the right questions, which often they wouldn't. They're just asking you things they think are going to be bombastic or something. So I think it's healthier in the sense that I think it's more authentic. There can be a dark side to this, of course, like leaning too much into your parasocial personality. But I think that was always an issue with celebrities. Like you can always lean way too far into your kind of celebrity status, no matter what you do. But I think this way it feels more human to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does feel more human and more, I don't know, real. and there's definitely a connection there between the audience and the creator. So with that said, do you think that the audience connects more with a YouTuber than they would with their with like maybe an actor or something that somebody follows and is interested in?
I would say yes. Um, I think the danger then becomes, because we can have a parasocial relationship, it can feel like you're more connected to an influencer than you actually are. You know,
Hmm.
if you're watching every Casey Neistat video or every Logan Paul video or whatever, or every Joe Rogan podcast, you might be like, oh, I know this guy. I know how he thinks, I know how he breathes, but really you're not friends. You don't actually know how they are not in front of the camera. So I think, is it healthier? I think generally yes, but it can also lead to kind of a false sense of knowing that isn't really true. You parasocially know somebody. I think most people realize that, but it's, I think, less likely to produce a sort of obsessive celebrity culture than the old way.
Yeah, it's pretty safe to say like the big creators like Casey Neistat and Mr. Beast, like they are pretty much on like I would say like a Michael Jackson type level. So the fact that anybody can become famous, I mean, like how much truth would you say that there is to that statement right there, first of all?
Mm, I think it's more true now than it was 20 years ago, for sure. But it's definitely not. It's mostly false, I would say. I think most people can't become famous, not because there's anything wrong with them necessarily. I just think it's a certain personality type that does well in front of a camera, that is willing to put in the effort to build their own little media business, like to
Hmm.
build their own YouTube channel. I think most people, like, they're not that interested in that. They're not gifted in that way. They're not
Yeah.
driven enough in that particular department to actually become famous. So I don't think anybody can become famous because, we all have a certain nature that we're drawn to, even for someone like me who has done very well on YouTube. Like, I've always been just fascinated by video production. I've always kind of had an obsession with it. Even in high school, I was making silly videos and showing them to my class, and they were always doing well. So I guess, at least for someone like me, I feel like I've always had, a gift to create videos that people enjoy. Whereas if you don't have that, or if you don't have the drive to create that for yourself, then yeah, you're not going to become famous. You're just not, and that's okay. But yeah, I just don't think anybody. I don't think everybody is suited for this. Not at all.
Totally. That's like saying, oh, anybody can make it to the NBA. Like, no, not anybody can make it to the NBA.
If you're five
Um,
foot two, you can still make it to the NBA. You just
but
gotta work on those calves, work on those hops.
yeah, you got to be able to jump or some. You got to be an outlier on YouTube as well, you know?
Hmm.
So I do think that, yeah, there's different strengths that you must have in order to make it on YouTube and be famous, I guess. But there is kind of a smaller level of fame, and it's not maybe not, you can't classify it as fame, but just more of community building that can happen for, I would say, anybody on YouTube, where it could be a small community, but I think anybody, if they really wanted to dive into it, even with poor camera presence, editing, everything, like I've seen people just stick around on there and build their 10,000 or 1,000 subscriber channel, and maybe it's a hobby, but still a good hobby nonetheless.
Right, they're
Yeah.
they're famous in their community.
Yeah, and what more do you want? If it's something you're passionate about, that's great. So, okay, now to like what extent do you think it's actually the fame that is driving people to upload videos, make videos because they're chasing fame? Like, what are people chasing when they're like, I want to start uploading on YouTube? What is it?
hmm So I think there's two answers to that question. The first is the situation where somebody starts a YouTube channel, but they kind of don't really follow through. Maybe they like make a video and it doesn't do well, and they're not consistent at all. They give up. I think that person is probably looking for fame, or they're just trying it out. But I think the person who tries a little bit and then gives up probably has surface level intentions with creating a YouTube channel. They like the idea of being famous. They like the idea of being a YouTuber, but not the reality of it. The second is I think somebody who succeeds, they generally end up falling in love with the process itself. They're not necessarily in love with keeping score. They don't care as much about a high score. Like, yes, they're maybe chasing numbers. Maybe they want to see their business grow, of course. But ultimately, I think someone like that, it's the love of the game. They love making the videos. They love coming up with the ideas. They love solving the problems to get to the next step. It's ultimately, to me, success is most determined by how much do you love the process? How much are you willing to optimize your process or fall in love with your process? And that's the most important thing, is enjoying the act of doing it. Or if not enjoying, at least like having some kind of peace about it, even when it's feeling squirrely and difficult, and showing up to work every day can be hard. But ultimately, if the process is right for you, I think that is going to be way more of a determining factor for succeeding than chasing fame or numbers or anything kind of shallow like that.
Yeah, I like that tip about the process, because that's what it really is all about, is coming up with a repeatable process to be able to create great content, on a weekly basis at minimum, for a length of time. So totally great advice there. Okay, let's get back to kind of this whole shift of like influence. Like, now it belongs to these people who, yes, really could be just somebody with a iPhone in their bedroom talking. If they really can say the right words, people can grow a YouTube channel like that, and that person can have major influence. We're talking A-list celebrity influence, and a great way to communicate back and forth with their audience through the internet and the social media platforms, where traditional celebrities had no business seeing comments or having social media to go back and forth with. So what's the danger in that? Okay, what's the danger in this parasocial back and forth celebrity to audience relationship?
Well, I think there's a two-way danger there, right? So for the celebrity, I think the danger is you can spend your whole life, if you're famous enough, scrolling through Twitter and seeing what people are saying about you. You can spend hours a day reading YouTube comments about you. And a lot of the things that people say are probably going to be negative. Maybe they're neutral, maybe they're positive, but like ultimately, you can kind of get sucked down this rabbit hole of what are people saying about me? And that's the danger, is you start identifying so heavily with your online persona that you become obsessed with looking at these criticisms or looking at the praise, and that can be very mentally unhealthy. And then the other direction, so if you are a fan and you love some YouTuber, their content, their videos changed your life, or they gave you a different perspective that you really needed on things. The danger there is you can follow them on Instagram and Twitter and watch all their stories and constantly be waiting for their next upload. Like, you can kind of get sucked into like their little universe and almost start developing what you perceive to be a friendship or a personal relationship with this person, because of the quote unquote intimacy that YouTube offers that the old style of media just never did. So yeah, you can get a false sense of knowing an influencer when, yeah, if you've watched all their stuff, and especially if they've kind of made themselves the center of their narrative. Yeah, you actually might know a lot about them. You might even vibe with them if you happen to meet them in person and weren't super nervous. But ultimately, it's just you don't know them, and you can develop a kind of delusional relationship if maybe you're kind of lonely and you don't have a lot of friends and there's not like a grounding support system around you. You get overly attached to these online personalities, so that's kind of the twofold danger here.
Yep, no, those are both very true. And I also thought of the other one, which is kind of on the money side, the business side, is that they can influence you to purchase things, right, and spend money. And I would say definitely influencers have been tempted and have successfully attempted scams against their own audiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crypto scams,
Yeah,
or
good point.
just selling a bad product and all that. Like, so, and the brands, right? The brand deals, like the brands are getting in their ears, and you're basically falling in love with these other brands just because you love this YouTuber. And yeah, it's all business. So yeah, of course, there's ethical ways to do it, and I think that's just a major key as a creator is you want to promote stuff that you use yourself or that you have used and that you enjoy, and get brand deals with them. So,
Mm-hmm.
any thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. I like what you said about like YouTubers potentially taking advantage of their audience, um, because yeah, you do have a direct relationship with them. I mean, there's kind of been this Mr. Beast controversy recently where he's been accused of pumping and dumping crypto scams essentially, and using his platform on Twitter to kind of bolster the popularity of certain cryptos or NFTs that and then he just ends up selling as soon as people start buying, right? So he pulls out the rug from under it as soon as it starts gaining some momentum, and he cashes out, makes millions. And so that's kind of what CoffeeZilla was accusing him of. It all seems legit, but yeah, I think with that direct relationship with an audience, you can manipulate your audience in a way that is very real, like that, because that's like a very real time form of manipulation, right? Like, one, you comment in the morning on some cryptocurrency that nobody's ever heard of, it gets much more popular, people buy into it, and then by the end of the day you sell it off. Like, I don't think that that sort of fast-paced scam existed even 10, 15 years ago. It just didn't. So yeah, that is kind of a new form of danger with this way of interacting with audiences. It's fascinating to think about, kind of scary, but also fascinating.
And also something that I think people like CoffeeZilla are putting an end to, right? I think there was kind of
Mm-hmm.
a golden era, maybe of those kind of scams that are now getting called out quite
Mm-hmm.
heavily. I don't know if there's any consequences of those things, like legally and stuff, but I mean, it does put a tarnish on your reputation. And yeah, I
For
think it
sure.
definitely makes creators think twice now before trying any kind of scams. When before they probably thought no one will even know. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
crazy,
or
man?
maybe I kind of wonder, like, before all these scams started getting outed, like, do you think people like that even thought of it as a scam, or do they just kind of think of it like this is a game, and they, like, I don't know. I don't think ignorance is an excuse for doing this at all. I'm not like defending them necessarily, but like, now we know what a crypto scam looks like. Like, we know what a pump and dump looks like. Whereas 5 years ago, it's possible, like, you get involved with the wrong people and you kind of get pump and dumped, and or you end up pulling out the rug, but you don't necessarily realize that you selling your currency is going to like tank the value of it. I don't know how you maybe couldn't know that, but like, it's possible that you could be ignorant of that. Whereas now we all know about these things. So now there is no excuse. So yeah, it's kind of like, I think maybe there maybe there was some
Yeah.
accidental crypto scams, but also, I don't know. Either way, it's like, I think if you really thought about it and you weren't being greedy and selfish, you probably would have realized what you were doing.
Yep, totally. And it seems
Mm-hmm.
like every single big creator at least did at least one time. So I think that's probably where it was, like, where one person did it and they made 20 million or whatever, something big, and then that little tagline right there got around enough to where they did and made 20 million. I could do it and make 10 million or whatever.
Right.
And so it was enough of a motivating factor, I think, for each of them. And the I'm sure the lingo around it was, oh no, it's not illegal. It's not illegal. It's not illegal. Well,
Right.
it's not illegal. Well, it's not illegal. I don't know if it is illegal. I don't know. I guess it's technically not. Maybe it is now. Do you know? Is a rug pull
I
illegal?
I actually have no idea. I think
Yeah.
with like stocks, like, that would be considered insider trading, right? I don't know how cryptocurrency is regulated.
Yeah.
Because yeah, if you did that with a stock, that would absolutely be illegal. But crypto is kind of in like this weird gray area, so
Hmm.
technically it might not be illegal, which I think is why some of these lawsuits maybe aren't sticking, or why it took so long to get lawsuits or attention to this in the first place. Is like,
Hmm.
yeah, there's no laws in the books about this yet,
Yeah.
to my
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah. Same here. So when it comes to like, new creators doing it for the fame, creating videos for the fame, maybe somebody that's watching this is thinking about the fame. They're excited now. Like, what's your piece of advice to them?
My advice is worry less about the fame, think less about the fame and more about the process of doing, because fame isn't really in your control. Actually, like, you don't really have control over when you start getting big, and if your motivation is reliant on numbers, like, it's entirely possible you're just going to end up giving up really soon, because the chances of you succeeding off the bat are very low. So it's all about the process of making the videos. Like, do you enjoy expressing yourself in that way? Or if you don't, like, is there a different way you can go about making videos? So focus more on how you feel while you are creating a video versus your end goal of fame. And even if you do end up being successful, you do end up being famous, if you are ultimately in this for the fame, I would argue like your time is limited, because you actually don't really like the process, because fame is like a drug, right? And you end up building a tolerance. Like, yeah, now I have 1 million subscribers, but now I want 2 million subscribers, and it's a lot easier to end up making decisions that are not true to yourself, that your audience doesn't like, that aren't good for your brand, because you're chasing fame and you're addicted and you're basically on you're on drugs, and the drug is called fame. And when you get addicted to drugs, your perception of reality warps, your ability to make good decisions goes down. And be very careful with chasing fame, because even if you get it, I think your time is going to be a lot more limited being famous, ironically, than if that was secondary to enjoying the process.
Yeah, that was well said, man. You did a great job today. You carried today. And if everybody liked this episode, hey, hit subscribe. If you're listening on the audio platforms, you can follow us as well there. And hope you guys liked today's episode. We will see you guys in the next episode.
Later, everyone.